Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to the show. Sorry, no show last week. There was a birthday party I had to go to. So here we are. We're back now. Yay! I know you're all sad that you missed Pamela Acker last week, and I'm sure you're so happy that you get to hear her again this week. So joining me is my host and co-host Peter.
Hello.
Welcome back.
How's everyone doing?
Well, I hope that our that everybody in who's here is doing okay, especially if you're in Florida with all the wacky weather going on. And also we have one of my editors. We have Nestlig. Welcome back.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Being busy and a bit tired, but I'm still ready for doing this.
Fair.
It's fun. It's fun. It's a fun in a masochistic way. I could think.
Nice save.
Yeah.
Save.
That's true. Right now there is a massive hurricane moving toward Florida, and that's it's not great. I saw one report by I think it was a meteorologist who said that the hurricane was reaching the mathematical limit of what's allowed for hurricanes. So that's not great. It's not cool.
What happens if it goes over the limit that's allowed? Is it put in time out?
I think they're saying that it can only be a certain size, and it's at the limit of what's possible.
Didn't it die down a bit before it hit?
I think it did.
Yeah, it went from category 5 to category 2. I think when it hit land.
Well, that's good that it went down, certainly, because it was kind of bananas. So, and then the Republican Party wasted no time in declaring that this hurricane is not, or that large hurricanes are not becoming an increasing worry because of the increasing temperatures of our oceans, which allow for more hurricanes and larger and longer lasting hurricanes. But no, there was a weather machine, a comic book supervillain style weather machine that the Democrats are using to do harm to red states.
Isn't that funny?
Cool?
Isn't it funny that the political party who has said that climate change cannot be man-made is now claiming that the weather is man-made? Kind of insane, right?
The negative externalities of manufacturing, so putting out all these these pollutants like carbon dioxide and methane and sulfates and things like that, these can't possibly be affecting the atmosphere, and they can't possibly be trapping heat in the atmosphere. But we definitely have weather machines that are causing massive storms. That's definitely true. So yeah, that's cool. We love that. I guess what this means is maybe they accept now climate change, but it's just weather machine or a climate machine, I guess. Maybe.
I want to have a word with the person controlling the weather machine. We've had enough rain in Europe. Can you cut it out? Can you cut it out now, please? I mean,
it's pretty crazy,
But a few hours ago, we did have the Northern Lights, and they were pretty spectacular, and I slept completely through it. Because I'm old and I take a nap at that time. I mean, this was 8 p.m. in the evening. I need to be up at this time, which is 2 a.m. So I thought, I'm going to take a nap. And then the people controlling the weather sent us the Northern Lights. Oh, that's not the weather, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Brian Stevens says Marjorie Taylor Greene believes in Jewish space lasers. Well, I just saw a tweet. I
Yeah,
just told Jackson. I saw a tweet on Twitter. I still call it Twitter because it's Twitter.
on the
Um,
tweeter.
yes. And someone said the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't struck by lightning frequently is evidence that no one is controlling the weather. And I think that was a pretty good piece of evidence.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. So, before we get into the watching the video again, last time we were watching it, Pamela made a claim that I think none of us had ever heard of before,
Mm-hmm.
which was that so that oral contraceptives uh, cause genetic entropy, hence the title of the last show. Uh, and so I found a paper from 2008 that is on. So basically, what happens is, so you have your major histocompatibility complex, and this influences individual or genes for your MHC influence your odors and your odor preferences. And the claim is that oral contraceptives affect the your one's ability to detect the MHC odors. So here's a paper from 2008, and here are some of their findings. They say that in contrast to some previous studies, there was no significant difference in ratings between odors of MHC dissimilarity dissimilar and MHC similar men among women during the follicular cycle phase. However, single women preferred odors of MHC similar men, while women in relationships preferred odors of MHC dissimilar men, a result consistent with studies in other species, suggesting that paired females may seek to improve offspring quality through extra pair partnerships. Across tests, we found a significant preference shift towards MHC similarity associated with pill use, which was not evident in the control group. If odor plays a role in human mate choice, our results suggest that contraceptive pill use could disrupt dissociative mate preferences. So that's if odor plays a significant role in mate preferences. Okay, so uh, that's possible. I'm not aware of any studies to date that show that oral contraceptives have had any actual effect on genetics or on population genetics. I'm not aware of any. And I'd kind of be surprised if they exhibited such an effect that like they caused inbreeding or something. Again, I'm not aware of any studies that indicate that. So it just seems that it does have this effect, but whether or not that has any actual effect on assortative mating, I'm not sure if there's any evidence of that. So
Speaking about studies, Jackson, because we had a chat before we went live, and I'm officially now calling for people to put subwoofers near the house of Marjorie Taylor Greene, to just help her with her thoughts. Can you elaborate on what I'm talking about here? Because I thought that was pretty cool.
I found out today through some research that I was doing for my class that that infrasonic noises, infrasonic sounds, or infrasounds, you can't hear them. So things that are like below 20 hertz, you can't hear them, but you can feel them. And as we were talking about, if you have like a subwoofer that can generate these infrasounds that you can feel, and the movie industry makes use of this by, like, if you're watching a horror movie, it'll put out these frequencies that can put you on edge. So these sounds can make you feel fear. They can make you like hyperventilate and make you like have a dry mouth. And so all things that like are associated with our fear response. And so so there's some research that maybe paranormal activities are, at least some of them, the thing that is responsible for them is infrasounds, which I thought was very interesting. Did not know that. So
Or maybe evidence that ghosts are Hollywood artists.
That's also certainly possible. Yeah.
Or sound engineers.
Yeah, they're all sound engineers.
Or people with large sound systems in their car driving past your house every once in a while. I mean, everything's
so
possible.
we need to. So you should put a bunch of subwoofers around Marjorie Taylor Greene's house or mansion or whatever.
Also, on a related crazy note, like, have you also heard about the recent Trump clip? Him saying it's in the genes, like criminality is in the genes. He says.
Oh, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be surprised by that. That's honestly less crazy. You know, the hereditarian hypothesis is honestly less crazy than immigrants eating like cats and dogs. So you know,
at this point, you cannot even pretend anymore. Like he's just going full blown eugenics with that comment.
Well, I mean, that's the hereditarian hypothesis stuff is very common in some like right wing circles. The people who are very, you know, absolutely serious about like IQ and that, you know, the population, the different races are separable by their IQ, and there are real races. Race isn't just a, you know, isn't just a social construct. It's a biological construct, or it's a biological, you know, fact or whatever. Like, yeah, all these ideas kind of go hand in hand, and they're all kind of silly. Race realism is silly. The hereditarian hypothesis is silly. I'm not surprised, honestly. He's surrounded by crazy people, so he's going to put out crazy stuff. So
I'm wondering. I'm wondering when Trump is going to come up with the fact that Haitians are now moving to Florida in large amounts because of the fact that they heard on the news that it's raining cats and dogs there. Sorry.
Terrible stuff.
That's my dad joke for the day. Feel free to use it.
Okay, I will. This is like the one time in history we can use that joke. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also was reminded of like this article that was written by a nephew of Trump, and like I forget the details, but it was like one point he and some of his friends, like his nephew is really into like providing healthcare for disabled people, and so he went to Trump to talk to him about this problem, and behind the doors, Trump told his nephew basically, it's such a waste. Perhaps these people should just die. That's according to his nephew. He says that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, not particularly surprising. I mean, that's kind of, if I'm honest, that's kind of the conservative feeling in the U.S. generally is poor people, maybe they should just die. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's like they don't say, like usually they don't say it, but that's how they act.
Well,
yeah.
that's why it's so
just
funny.
like it's just like. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish.
Oh, like I like it. It again reminds me of a comment made by what's the comedian's name again? Like like he said, if you're pre-born,
George
you're
Carlin.
good. If you're George Carlin. Yeah. If you're pre-born, you're good. If you're preschool, you're fucked. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's very similar to that's what's so funny to me about the complaint that conservatives tend to make, that well, we can't give money to Ukraine and Israel because we need to use that money on our own people. Okay, well, how are we going to put that into like EBT or Social Security or any kind of social services? No. So we're not going to use that money on our own people either. Okay, what are we complaining about then? So anyway, so it's just kind of funny to me. But anyway, all right. So we ready to jump headlong into to Pamela Acker?
All right.
Yeah,
I'm as ready as I will ever be about going through this.
That's fair. Yeah. All right, let's do it.
If the decay and the creation are not occurring at the same rate, you do not have a stable amount of carbon-14 in the atmosphere.
Is it currently increasing or decreasing overall?
That's a great question, and because I'm really bad at true-false questions, I don't retain
Okay.
details like that. So if it's one or
Wait,
the
Wait,
other,
wait,
I'm like, I think it was
well,
this,
pause
but
for I have to pause again. I have to pause already. Like, does she? Isn't she aware that like carbon-14 is regenerated in the atmosphere by cosmic rays? Like it sounds
well,
like she thinks
that's
that
what she
it's
just
just
said. Because she just said it's
yeah.
created, but I guess the question is more of like, is the rate increasing in favor of creation rather than it's like incorporation into materials?
Mm,
Um,
all right.
I think it's like a fairly steady rate, isn't it? I mean, barring like, isn't that why? Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that why like if you're doing carbon dating, you have to take into account events that like affect the atmosphere, like the nuclear radiation from like the end of World War II.
Oh yeah. I think so. Yeah. It's from like like naturally it's mainly from gamma radiation, right?
Right.
From space, or is it from different type? I have to look it up. Yeah.
I think it's primarily from the atmosphere, right? It's like the fractioning of particular C14 formation. Yeah, from
Yeah,
nitrogen.
it's when it's when cosmic rays interact with nitrogen. Yeah.
Right, nitrogen 14 turning it. Yeah, okay, that's right. Okay, yes. So mostly it's coming from the atmosphere. So there's, I guess you could say there's like a steady rate. I guess would be to answer his question. So there's like a background rate, you might say. Same for carbon 13 and carbon 12, which is how we know that we are increasing the amount of carbon 12 in the atmosphere via the carbon dioxide that is released from factories. So if you compare the percentage of the atmosphere that is carbon, that is like, so carbon dioxide with where the carbon is carbon 12 versus the carbon dioxide where the carbon is carbon 13. So it's only like 1%, something like that. It's a very small percent of carbon atoms are carbon 13 and like a just trace amounts, or it's like carbon 14. But most of it's carbon 12. And carbon 12 is preferentially put into or preferentially taken up by plants in photosynthesis.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are burning photosynthetic organisms or the remains of photosynthetic organisms, you are putting that carbon 12 back into the atmosphere. And so the ratio of carbon 12 to carbon 13 starts skewing. And so if you're burning lots of formerly photosynthetic organisms, you're putting lots of carbon 12 back into the atmosphere. And so we can literally like watch in real time. You can do the measurement year by year and see how the ratio carbon 12 to carbon 13 in the atmosphere change over time. That's called carbon 13. It's like carbon 13 delta, I think, is what it's called, or delta carbon 13. It's one of those delta C13, I believe is what it's called. Because delta, just for anyone who's not aware, means change. So, is it this group? Yeah, I think it's these guys. Skeptical Science is a cool website. They also have a book that's about like global warming. They basically call out global warming denialism. Highly recommend this website. But yeah, so you can see how, for instance, the amount of carbon 13 in the atmosphere relative to carbon 12 changes over time. So yep. Okay. Anyway, okay, we can keep going. Sorry, I got carried away.
Don't really remember.
Okay.
So I just remember we're not at equilibrium. So if we're not at equilibrium now, there's no reason to assume that we were at equilibrium in the past. And there's no reason to assume that the current amount of carbon 14 that we find present in the atmosphere is the same as the amount of carbon 14 that was present when the dinosaurs died. And the carbon 14 is going to be affected by...
Wait a second. We can literally measure that. We can literally measure the amount of like carbon 12, carbon 13, carbon 14 in the atmosphere. Like that's a thing we can do. What do you mean?
She's referring to like how do we know the content in the atmosphere back then? But also we aren't using carbon 14 for dinosaur bones.
Right. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
first of all, that is a huge problem. Yeah. We're not talking about carbon 14 in dinosaur bones because what does Potholer say? There's no carbon in it, right? So,
There ain't no carbon in it.
yeah, there's no carbon in dinosaur bones, so that's not an issue. But also for things that where we can use carbon, carbon 14 dating, you can see how the amount of carbon 14 and carbon 13, carbon 12, how these change in the atmosphere over time because, and this is what's cool about it, we can literally find like samples of ancient atmospheres, like in ice. That's a
Oh
thing
yeah,
you can find.
yeah. You can measure you can measure the atmosphere from the past by using ice cores. Exactly. Yeah, I
And they
forgot
go up
about
to
that. Yeah.
like 800,000 years, don't they? It's like a ridiculously long way back.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we have ice cores that have samples of the atmosphere in them. So like the what do you mean? We can measure it.
And we can also compare like the ice cores also like records like major volcanic events in history. So
Mhm.
they can see like oh this is when Vesuvius erupted, for example, or this is when Tambora erupted, for example. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, yeah.
She's so dumb. Oh my gosh, she's so dumb. Okay, we keep going.
The strength of the Earth's magnetic field because it's created from cosmic rays hitting the atmosphere. So if the magnetic field is stronger, then there's going to be less carbon 14. We know that the
Wait,
magnetic field was stronger in the past, right?
wait, hold on a second. That's wait. Okay,
If I'm a bit okay, go
what
ahead.
she's
So
I
you go
think
first.
she's talking about there is a I'm sure that there's probably a relationship between these things, but like this again is like um what were you gonna say, Nestle? You go ahead first.
If like I just saw that like the way carbon 14 is produced in the atmosphere, like we
Hmm.
already know that it's from the nitrogen, right? And the nitrogen is hit by
Hmm.
neutrons from space. And
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, the neutrons are neutrally charged, so the magnetic field doesn't have an impact on that. Or maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm
I'm
wrong.
I'm pretty sure you're correct. Uh I'm pretty sure. Um um it says yes a little. Well, one okay, so they can be affected. I wonder. I don't know enough about the subject. I would be surprised if like the magnetic field is like the biggest impact on this. Uh, I'd be surprised. Okay, I'm curious actually. So carbon 14 magnetic field. Does that well, actually, hold on. There's a National Center for Science Education article. Uh magnetic. Oh, here we go. Okay. This might be related. Let me see. Let's see. Creationist Thomas Barnes has claimed that the Earth's magnetic field is decaying exponentially with a half-life of 1,400 years. Not only does he consider this proof that Earth can be no older than 10,000 years, but he also points out that a greater magnetic strength in the past would reduce C14 dates. Now, if the magnetic field several thousand years ago was indeed many times stronger than it is today, there would have been less cosmic radiation entering the atmosphere back then and less C14 would have been produced. Therefore, any C14 dates taken from objects that time period would be too high. How do you answer that? The response is Barnes looks at only part of the evidence. What he ignores is that the great body of archaeological and geological data showing that the strength of the magnetic field has been fluctuating up and down for thousands of years, that it has reversed polarity many times in the geological past. Wait, so when Barnes extrapolates tens of thousands of years into the past, he concludes that the magnetic field was 19 times stronger than it is today, when actually it was only half as intense as now. Okay, so it was only half as intense as now. That means that radiocarbon ages of objects from that time will be too young, just as we saw from the bristlecone pine evidence. What does that have to do with the actual carbon? So So, in other words, it rose to an intensity from half times its present value in 4000 BC to a peak of 1.6 times its present value in 400 BC, and has only been slowly declining since. Even before the bristlecone plane calibration of C14 dating was worked out by Ferguson, Buca predicted that this change in the magnetic field would make radiocarbon dates too young. This idea that the fluctuating magnetic field affects influx of cosmic rays, which in turn affect C14 formation rates, has been taken up by a Czech geophysicist, V. Buca, who has been able to determine using samples of baked clay from archaeological sites what the intensity of the Earth's magnetic field was at the time in question. Even before the tree ring calibration data were available to them, he and the archaeologist, another guy, were able to suggest how much this would affect the radiocarbon dates. Not only that, but the predictions were confirmed in detail. There's a good correlation between the strength of the Earth's magnetic field, as determined by Buca, and the deviation of the atmospheric radiocarbon concentration from its normal value, as indicated by the tree ring radiocarbon work. So once we know all the magnetic data, we can see that really supports the tree ring calibration of C14 dating. Okay, so basically, once you figure out what the, it seems to me that once you figure out what the magnetic field is, you can calibrate. You use that in part to calibrate your C14 dates. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So basically, she is not. So this is not like an unknown issue. This is like a thing that archaeologists know about, and I'm sure she's going to use it to say, therefore, you can't trust carbon-14 when like archaeologists know that this is a thing and that's something they take into account. It's kind of like when Kent Hovind says the what is it, the what's it called, where like a marine snail shell will be like, you know, tens of thousands of years old when it like just died or whatever. What's that one called?
The reservoir
effect.
Yeah, the reservoir effect. Yeah, it's like the same kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. Learning something new. Okay.
So,
or if solar activity for a period was higher or lower,
right.
that could affect
Yep,
it too. Okay.
Absolutely. So, if there was less carbon-14 in that dinosaur when it died than I think there was, it's going to date to older than it should.
No.
Right. So that's one thing.
No.
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 The second thing is I have to assume that that's a closed system, that nothing ever came into or went out of it. Right. Now, if I cover the entire Earth in water, water leaches everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So if
Water
water leaches some of that carbon-14 out of that bone is going to have less carbon-14 than I think it should. It's going to date older than it is.
Again,
right? So
there's
that's
no
problem.
carbon-14 in
And then
these
the
fossils.
other problem Rob actually referred
That's
to a
just not
second
a thing.
ago, which is basically that we assume that the rate of radioactive decay is constant over time. And
Hey,
we don't have
Nestle,
any
I got
way
a
of
question for
knowing
you.
that the radio.
Yeah, pause for a second. So Nestle, I got a question for you. What would happen to the observable universe if the rate of radioactive decay sped up?
It would get a bit hotter, I believe. Yeah.
Just get a little bit hotter, just a
little bit hotter.
Okay,
Little bit hotter.
A little toasty. Yeah.
Little toasty, yeah.
Yeah. So it would irradiate the observable universe if we tried speeding up the decay rate of all elements, because because remember, if you're speeding up the decay rate, like you're not just affecting these like, you know, things like uranium and you know, stuff like that. It's also going to affect all the other atoms in the universe, right? So all of these are going to be affected, and you're going to have radioactivity, like, or you're going to have energy coming out of like everywhere, and everything's going to get completely irradiated. So
like I coincidentally I was like watching an old stream on Erica's channel, where she and other people like were discussing the heat problem as well. And
Mhm.
if I remember correctly, I think it was Dapper who mentioned that if you only consider the potassium, I believe it's potassium 40 that's radioactive, right? Or maybe
Okay.
a different isotope of like one radioactive isotope of potassium. Like you may have heard before that all bananas are radioactive, but of course, like almost like everything is radioactive because every biological thing has potassium in it, and just some portion of it is the radioactive isotope. So,
Okay.
but if you do the calculate, like if you need to accelerate radioactive decay to the degree that is needed to save young Earth creationism, the heat released by the radioactive potassium would give Noah a deadly fever, basically. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like and they recognize young Earth creationists know that the heat problem is not solved. They know this. They pretend like it's not an issue, but they know this. They know it's a problem. They know that there is no solution to it unless God just reached in and plucked all the heat out of out of the universe. I guess. Um, so yeah, it's just silly.
Like a big
He
like
put his little
like that.
straw into the
Yeah, like
observable
straw.
universe, just kind of sucked it out. Yeah, he just. Yep. Okay, we can keep going.
Active decay is constant beyond the amount of time that we've been able to measure it. Right. So, and we have actually examples of things that we know the date of and we know the age of. We know when something was formed or when something died.
Oh, Andrew Snelling.
And we radiocarbon date or it's not carbon dating, but it's radiometric dating. We radiometrically date lava rock, for example, and it dates to
Andrew Snelling.
completely wrong ages. There are many examples
So,
of this.
Okay, so let's pause for a second.
Scientific literature.
Yeah.
So again, I'm sorry I keep pausing so frequently, but the example here.
To be fair, there are so many things wrong in every sentence. We have to.
RJ and I actually discussed this in Rocks Volume 1. We covered it in Chapter 2. So what she's referring to is Andrew Snelling. He took some rocks from, I think it was Mount St. Helens, actually. So he took
I think so, yeah.
some rocks from the site where the volcanic eruption occurred, and he sent them off to some commercial business to get them radiometrically dated, and they came back with like crazy dates. And he was like, it's impossible because they just formed. Like the problem was there was literally no analysis of the contents of these rocks. He just sent these rocks off to this business that does radiometric dating, and like he just paid them to date the rocks. There was no chemical analysis done. We have no idea what part of the rock was dated. We have no idea what the actual like geochemical data was for any of these samples. Like there's none. There's nothing. And he just kind of waves it as. Go ahead.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was done. Yeah.
Like it's also like if you see like the old like the movie of the Mount St. Helens erupting, the whole side of the mountain just blew off basically. So there are a lot of old stuff mixed around. So you have to pick your sample really carefully, and that's of course, as you mentioned before, Snelling just picked up a random rock, basically, and. Yeah, we don't know we don't even know if it was the actual new stuff that came out of the volcano, or it was just like one of a random sample that was already laying around before the eruption.
Yeah, we have literally no way of knowing because there was never a geochemical analysis done on the rocks. Literally no way of knowing. So this example is stupid. And of course, creationists are never going to fact check it because they just don't care. They don't care. They don't know enough about this subject, and Pamela definitely doesn't. So yeah. No, Thylacca Leon Kennedy. We've talked about her being anti-vax. Yeah, we talked about that last time. I think she mentioned it. That's right. She just like unprompted said children are dying from having too many vaccines, and we looked up papers that was like the vaccines are like not even in like the top 10 causes of child death or of like infant mortality.
Like it's exceedingly rare. Like more people die from car crashes, of course. Like you don't even even have to look it up. But like vaccines are such a like like even severe reaction, like an allergic reactions, even that is also very rare.
Yeah.
Also,
she's very
I have
bad.
to correct. I have to correct myself. Like I mentioned about the neutrons colliding with the nitrogen is what produces the carbon 14. But it's like the neutrons are a secondary effect. Like what happens is cosmic radiation, which is mostly ionized, like it's charged. That colliding with the atmosphere, that produces the nitrogen. So that produces the neutrons. So the neutrons is like a first order effect of the rays hitting the atmosphere, and that in turn is what is producing the carbon 14. So yeah, so it's not like the neutrons are coming from space. They are they are also produced in the atmosphere. The neutrons, yeah.
Okay, I got you. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
cool. Okay, we can keep going.
So the dating itself is not infallible for a number of reasons because it's based on 3 assumptions that we know actually don't hold very well.
So, all right, what'd you actually major in when you went to school? Like, what did you actually go to school for?
Cell and molecular
Not
biology,
geology,
but
not
I had an interest in
paleontology,
biochemistry,
not zoology.
and my research that I did in graduate school was in vaccines and then genetics.
So while you're going to school for this,
so how did you become such an idiot then?
What is the school stance? Is the school stance that they're teaching you this
brainworms,
presuming that evolution is true?
Oh yeah. I mean, I had to take an entire semester of evolution in my undergrad just to make sure.
What the frick? Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich in her visions mentions how in the Old Testament times people were taller and much more attractive than contemporary people. Genetic entropy is real. Literal brainworms is what we're reading right here. Literal brainworms. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to read that comment. I was like, wait, what?
I mean, Jackson, come on. There is good evidence for that, at least for the latter part of that, because haven't you heard that Cleopatra was one of the most beautiful people ever lived on the planet? I mean, come on. So,
wait, say that one more time. Who was?
Cleopatra.
Oh, okay.
The pharaoh. She was so stunningly beautiful, Jackson.
I don't think that was Old Testament time though. That was a little bit more recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean,
like New Testament time.
She was one of the last ones. That's why she wasn't that tall.
So, you know what? Okay, so I do want to tell you guys. I read a book recently. I read 1177 BC, the year civilization collapsed recently, and something that blew my mind in that book, Peter, you reminded me of this, was the alleged Exodus, the alleged events of Exodus, and the alleged events of the Trojan War occurred at approximately the same time, which was like around 1250 BC, and that's kind of bananas to me. Now, like obviously both of those events were like super exaggerated from the real events, but they're both claimed to have occurred like at about 1250 BC. Like that's wild stuff. It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Wacky. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't think of, or at least I don't typically think of things that way. Like I don't know. I guess I never really thought about it, but the book puts it in perspective. It's like, huh.
Well, okay. But also like apparently tall is not genetic entropy, and shorter means genetic entropy according to this person. Like
right.
Like first of all, like how do you make that determination? Also, secondly, people are taller today on average than they were in the past.
No. Don't you remember the Smithsonian burned all of the giant skeletons? So like people were taller back then. They lived to 900 years old, but the Smithsonian burned all their skeletons. It's true. I heard it on like the History Channel or something. I don't know.
That's like remind me on average, which country has the tallest people?
The name escapes me for a moment. Maybe the lowlands, was it?
It was a country
something like that.
Yeah, it was a country that doesn't have mountains.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
Well, it had to make up for
It's-
its lack of mountains by having taller people.
Well, no, Jackson.
yes.
No,
Like we
no.
we
There's
evolved
a
we evolved to stick
there's a
above sea level. Yeah.
no. There's a perfectly good reason for that, Jackson, because we are a tiny country with an immense amount of people cramped into that country. So if we want to see ahead, we have to be capable of looking over the heads of everyone else. So there's an evolutionary pressure to make us taller so that we can see further ahead.
Oh,
That's
okay,
my
I got it.
hypothesis. I'm going to.
That's your adaptive hypothesis.
Yeah, one day I'm
Yeah.
going to write a paper about that, especially when you just gave me a list of journals where I can just post without any peer review.
I mean, Peter, your hypothesis is about as good as that of most like evolutionary psychologists. So I mean, might as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. It was.
Yeah.
I was
Might as well.
I was about to say, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
actually, speaking of, so what Peter's referencing is our dear creationist friend Otangelo.
And we
paid
use friend in the loosest
predatory-
way possible.
We do, yes. He paid a predatory journal in Brazil to host his paper, quote quote. I use that in the loosest way possible. If you read his paper, it's basically just a list of terms, and he says my model explains these things, but he never really gets around to how his model explains anything or what his model
news to me.
Oh, wait, did I send it to you in our group chat, or is that in?
No,
or
that
did I
was
just
in the
send it to
group.
Peter.
That was in the group chat, I think.
Yeah, check the group chat. Yeah, no, I did. I think. Yeah, there it is. Is it Peter? Your favorite creations published an article in a predatory journal. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not really a paper.
On Twitter, right? On Twitter, yeah. The DMs.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
It's not really a paper. It's just him. It's just like him listing words and saying quantum every so often. So it's very dumb.
So he basically did the same thing as although Ron Matt went to an actual journal, but he went ahead and put the logo on his paper before it was published.
Yeah, no, not like that
Not
with,
like
with PNAS.
like that,
no, he actually paid a journal to like publish.
Yeah.
It was so if you go to
right.
predatoryjournals.org, you can actually find the journal he published in. It's on that website. So yeah. Hold on, let me find. What was the title?
I have.
Can you also
Jackson, I
see
couldn't be
how
bothered.
much he likely paid for that?
I couldn't be bothered to read it, but did he actually present a model in this paper, or is he just talking about his model without presenting it?
He's talking about the omniscient divine energy consciousness paradigm. Now, what that means, the paper doesn't actually say. It never says what that is, what that entails, what that means. There's no. He just lists a bunch of terms, like freaking. Hold on. He lists like. It says key concepts in the ODECP, and this is the majority of his paper. Divine omniscience, hierarchy of physical law, multiple realms, transcendence of time and entropy, integration of modern physics, the first law of thermodynamics, the second law of thermodynamics, the third law of thermodynamics. It just goes on and on and on. He basically summarizes a bunch of different, like these various physics concepts, and then just says, these are crucial to consideration in the ODECP. Like that's it. That's the whole. It's the whole paper. It's just that over and over again.
I love it that he actually cited the first law of thermodynamics, which completely disproves his creation model.
Yeah, so it's pretty stupid. This is called the Journal of Mathematical Techniques and Computational Mathematics. So if you go to mathematical techniques in computational mathematics, there it is. Yeah, so if you go to predatory, here, I'll post it here in our chat. Actually, yeah, there's predatory journals. Yeah, I'll post the paper.
Can you also see how much he likely paid for that publication?
Maybe. Let's find out.
Yeah. I'm also curious how much money he was able to, or how much money he was willing to cough up for that. Yeah. If not, then we can move on.
I don't know. I don't know if predatory journals. I don't actually know. I don't know. I don't know if it says, or I mean, maybe you could go to it and like scroll around a little, but I'm not
I
sure.
thought that would be taking too much time, so I think we can.
Okay.
In the meantime, we can just move on.
All right, we can keep going.
You want to? Yeah.
That I understood how it worked, you know. So and
Well,
even when I was in graduate
want to
school,
know their right. You do want to know where they're claiming, like where they're making their claims from. That's the best way to refute their arguments too, I would guess.
yeah, but I don't really, you know, I mean, this was like 20 years ago, but I don't remember being given actual evidence from like research or I don't remember reading journal articles. I just remember being told like this is how it works.
It was indoctrination.
Spit it back to me.
Wait.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
Wait
read
for
real journal articles.
wait for what? For what? I missed what she said. What was she? Journal articles for what?
If I remember like I think she said like, oh, I was never encouraged to read articles. I was just told to believe this. Like maybe that's what she said, or maybe I'm mistaken.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like in my academic career, there are very few classes that actually asked me, and I have, so like I have my master's in biology, but like very few classes actually asked me to read technical literature. I mean, that could just be a function of where I went, or it could also simply be the case that like you're probably not going. Well, I don't know. Actually, I have no idea what. I don't know. I mean, that seems to be the case in general. That like people that some classes may make you read like a technical paper or maybe two, but like typically they don't make you read like a bunch of technical literature. I remember the point of a class is to summarize a bunch of technical concepts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're taking an immunology class, for instance, they're probably not going to say like hand you like a list of technical papers to go read, right? You're in that class because you want the basics of this subject. You're not.
It's a textbook, like a summary for all the research was already done, basically. Yeah.
Right.
Of course, there may be some courses which discuss like recent. Like I had some courses which was specifically focused on like the current topics of X, for example. Right. The current topics of biotechnology. That was like one course that I attended in my master's.
I had like a bioethics class, and yes,
yeah. Also, we also talked about ethics as well.
Yeah. So I had like a bioethics class where you basically had to like you had to do a project essentially where you and your partner presented like both sides of some bioethical consideration, and you had to go through the recent literature on that. Like, so yeah, that happens, but for most classes, no. And I think that's just because they recognize that you're entering this class probably without a whole lot of like pre-existing information on the subject. And so like you have the foundations maybe that you need to then learn all the rest of the information, but you don't need to leave this class being like an immunologist, right? You need to know the basics. You need to know all the basics of this class. That's what classes are for, right? Especially if you're taking this as like an undergrad or something. No one's expecting you to finish your undergrad as an expert in like anything really. I mean, like, okay, you are more educated on this subject than a random person on the street, but you probably don't have an expert level of knowledge in this field, right? I would say you're somewhere in there. Then by the time you get a master's degree, you're probably closer to that like expert level of knowledge in a particular field. And of course, by the time you get a PhD, you are the expert. You're actually contributing to, well, and also, I mean, well, with your master's too, you are contributing some research in theory to like the sum of human knowledge. So like, I mean, that's what I had to do. You have to write a thesis on some novel topic, and and do your work and get that peer reviewed by your professors or the school, or or submit it to a journal, what have you. So.
Mm-hmm. It's also like for especially for like high school
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even in how do you call it? Maybe even in college, like reading technical papers maybe a bit too early, because most technical papers like leave like many to you and me. Most terms are familiar, but to the average people in the public, like many terms are are left undefined. Like the technical papers mostly assume that you know these concepts, but of course,
Right.
most people don't, and that's why you have situations like raw math, for example, who cannot read papers. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I
Yeah.
think this is just a weird. I think this is kind of a weird complaint. Like, oh, they didn't ask me to read technical literature. No one's stopping you, Pamela. As somebody, who was it who said here in the live chat? As like Leon Kennedy says, well, that sounds like a you problem, Pamela. Yeah, I mean, true. Oh, Zach Hancock and Mike Atkinson. Hello. Yeah, like if you want to read technical literature, no one's going to stop you. You can do it. I did it. I'm sure Nestle, you did it too. I mean, like we did it because we were interested in this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can do it, but you can't really be
I
mad at
have
your
to. I have to.
right. But you
I
can't
have no
really be mad
choice.
at your professors for like
Yeah.
not telling you have to read technical literature. Like this is such a weird complaint. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, we can keep going.
Graduate
Oh, so
school,
wait, so you were an evolutionist while you were in college for this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I was
Evolutionist.
thinking that so you weren't even really pushing back on any of the things that seemed kind of wacky at the time, or
No, not when I got to graduate school. I
And then I was
would
like,
still
why
call
are there still
myself an
monkeys?
evolutionist, but I was very much like but you guys understand this can't happen like by itself, right? Like you really understand this can't happen by itself. And I didn't have as much stuff come up in class then because by the time
I
you get to
used to
graduate
be an
school, we're dealing with
evolutionist
real
until
science,
I
which
was
means
thinking
you're
like,
not actually
hey,
talking
why
as much
do
about
monkeys
evolution,
exist?
even though it's referenced in just about every paper that you read. There'll be some connection to the evolution of this or the evolution of that, and this is this way because it evolved, whatever. But
Wait,
you just kind of
pause.
skip over that and you actually
Pause. Okay, so this person, this idiot here in their live chat, is actually kind of making a point. Like, as you're taking these classes, like they're teaching you the material, right? They're just giving it to you. They're not telling you all the underlying research that went into it. Now, some classes may, like if you take a microbiology class, you might learn about the like particular experiments that were integral to the history of microbiology, or to how do we figure out that DNA is the the heredity or material of heredity, right? How do we figure that out? Well, you can probably go through the like various experiments that were done that allowed us to figure that out. But most of the time, you're probably not going to do that. You're not going to take, or you're not going to be in this like immunology class, and the professor's going to be like, "All right, I'm going to go through every single experiment we ever did that allowed us to figure out what the function of every single tissue that we're going to talk about." Like, no, that's not going to. You're not going to do that. That's ridiculous.
All right, folks. Today we are going to debunk the theory of phlogiston. Like we need to prove again for this class to prove definitely that phlogiston does not exist. Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you. So you might laugh at me. I actually do talk about phlogiston with my class. So in the class that I teach, which is like an intro to physics kind of class, it's called Foundations in Science. It is mostly physics, although we have like some astronomy stuff at the end. And then the first chapter is on like science, the process of science, and I talk about pseudoscience because of course I do. But in chapter 4, which we actually just finished, at the start of the chapter I talk about phlogiston, and then the transition from phlogiston to caloric theory, and then the transition from caloric theory to kinetic theory. So I do actually talk about those because, and in the space chapter, I talk about the luminiferous ether because I spent like hours reading about the different experiments that were done that allowed researchers to figure out that the luminiferous ether is not real, and how it ultimately culminated in like Einstein's special relativity. So like that all that stuff is really cool to me, and I bring that in as a historical background. But
Yeah.
most professors probably aren't. They're just in general probably not going to talk about that. So
It's often the case that like classes have like of course they have a limited time, so most time it's just spent on explaining the basic concepts that they are mostly taken for granted. Like it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. Like in your case, you can go into the historical details, and which can be fun.
yeah,
But if you will, but in some other situations, it's best to like just take the concepts for granted and just try to understand them as the basics. Like it's
right.
it
Yeah.
like one problem I have with this comment is that it sounds like they are expecting teachers to prove things. Like, oh, why doesn't the math teacher prove that 2 + 2 = 4? Like, why don't they prove it? Like, because they aren't like, education is not meant for to convince students. They are meant to like to explain things to students, like to make you understand the topic. They aren't meant to show you exactly what how they like. So of course sometimes they do, but sometimes they are not. It depends on it depends on exactly what the topic is, of course. But yeah, it's mostly it's just to make you understand a topic instead of making you understand how something was proven or
Yes.
demonstrated. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You don't expect your math teacher to like prove like the Pythagorean theorem, right? In
Yeah.
that class,
Yeah.
or derive every equation that you use from like first principles or something. Like that's not
Like, yeah.
a normal expectation of your class.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I think
And
this kind of
if I remember correctly, like the proof for 1 + 1 = 2, like that is like I don't remember how many pages that proposal was to prove 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, see, I think this is kind of emblematic of like or well, that's not the right word. This is kind of like this underlies a problem that certain people have with education. I think, especially with like conspiracy theorists. So the job of education, as we've been talking about, is to provide you with a foundation, right? It's to give you an overview of a particular subject. So you just get like you get the basics, you get the major concepts, and then you move on to the next class, right? That's the point of education. The point of education typically is not to give you every single factoid, every bit of historical minutia about some particular field. Although, of course, you can get these things, right? If you have the interest, you can go to Wikipedia and you can read the article and you can see what is the history of this concept, and so you can learn all that stuff. I think, and Pamela here is kind of representing this. Like what she was given is that basic foundation, right? But she's conspiracy brained because she's a moron, and as a result of that, she never went further and decided to learn like become an expert in these fields, right? So she didn't go and become an expert in like population genetics or something. She just took these ideas that she got and was like, well, these are too simplistic, so this must not be true. And then she learned some creationist crap, and um and then she went from there. But like that's like if you don't know anything more than just the basics of something, right? You
Yeah.
are probably more likely to succumb to conspiracy theories and that kind of stuff. If there's some everything is a conspiracy theory when you don't know how anything works, right? That's I've seen that quote before and I really like it, and I do think that Yes, actually, skeptics and scoundrels makes a good point. You can train someone to use a tool like a table saw without them knowing every detail about it. That's what general education does. Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
That's a good analogy. You don't have to teach them everything about it, just enough to know how things work. But
of course, when you go to like when you go into like an undergraduate or graduate school, that's when you become highly specialized, and that's
Yes.
and that's when you are expected to like do these difficult things. Yeah.
Mhm. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay. We can keep going.
Read the actual data when you're trying to analyze it for a class, but there. So I didn't have an opportunity to really push back much about it in graduate school anyway. I was kind of also busy pushing back about the aborted fetal cell issue, and that was about all I could handle at the time. So
it's so crazy. So because you're a cradle Catholic, we were bonding over our cradle Catholic because it is kind of funny. You can always tell a convert through their language, and they bring a Protestant ethos into the Catholic sphere, which I love. My Protestant.
If they mention the Bible every couple of minutes, convert, guarantee it.
They bring a Protestant ethos to the Catholics, like young Earth creationism. Sorry,
right, which was generated by Protestants. Yeah, exactly.
I had to say it. Sorry.
Yep.
Or they're constantly talking about the church fathers, like Joshua Charles is constantly about the church fathers, trying to explain to everybody why I came to this crazy place that you all think we worship statues. But so I don't even know.
I don't know. I know some cradle Catholics who talk a lot about the church fathers. So
yeah.
Well, that's a good thing, right? But I just snorted. All right,
yeah, I heard that. There's probably an evolutionary reason for that.
So your upbringing,
it's because he was a high school
you had never
dropout.
left the faith or anything, right? You didn't have like a reversion. You actually kept your faith throughout this entire process.
By the grace of God.
Yeah, well, me and Rob talk about that too, because I was cradle Catholic. There was never a time where I didn't believe in God, but there was a period where I lived as though God didn't exist.
I was a really bad Catholic for a while.
Catholic, so, but that really is amazing. So, about how long ago did you start coming around on this?
About 10 years ago. So I was teaching at the time at an all-boys school in Richmond, Virginia, and my colleague Billy Doran was he attended the Latin Mass, and at the time I was the sort of person who looked at him and said, well, what makes you think you're more Catholic than the church?
Now you're one of those radicals. It's great.
Well, I'm pleased to attend any Mass that our Lord is pleased to attend. Yeah. So there are certain ones that I won't go to, and others that I will happily go to, and the choices I make would surprise some people. So,
okay.
But
cool story.
He was just very insistent, that
wait, pause. No. I'm not surprised, but I'm still disappointed. This guy, this idiot, I'm an academic, and if you say you believe in geocentrism and young Earth, Catholic academics hate you and cancel you. There is no discussion or debate, just abuse and gaslighting, ridicule. Now, what's his name on the bottom there? I don't remember their names because I don't really care. Dude on the bottom highlighted that comment and put it on screen. Please don't tell me that everyone in this chat is a geocentrist too. Please.
This is a weekly embarrassment. This is a weekly embarrassment for me because dude at the bottom has as a subtag in StreamYard co-host and producer.
Well, Peter, you're way cooler than him. I want you to know that. You're the coolest.
Also, the first 3 words of that particular highlighted comment, I do not believe that.
I also don't believe that. Yeah, I just simply don't believe it. Like, you're an academic in what? What are you an academic in? I can't believe that he put that comment on screen. He went out of his way to
He has-
highlight it. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
He has a PhD in
Oh.
truthology from Christian Tech. I
That's
think.
probably true. That's probably true. He's got like a double doctorate in like in truthology and and I don't know, theology or something else, but yeah.
That episode lives rent free in my head. Like when Lisa gets home. Today we had a test on creationism. Every answer God did.
I hope they bring up that comment. Please, God, let them bring up that comment. Oh man, please. Let's keep going.
You know, I needed to go to this talk that this Hugh Owen guy was giving at the TLM church, and I was like, well, in the first place, this is at the TLM church, and in the second place, like I'm not interested in evolution from a theological perspective. It's not a theological question, is what I thought at the time, right? So,
Oh, by the way, for the people watching, Anthony has not responded to me yet. This is 3 weeks ago now. Why the Virgin Mary has a pig snout? I just wanted to say that because I did
Rob,
ask him.
That's the guy on the bottom, Rob. Okay, okay, that's fair. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna respond to you, Peter. Oh, $5 from Savage Cobra, the Ediacaran invertebrate. I feel like that's code for teaches PE at a Catholic elementary school. That's probably true. Because what is it? Kent Hovind says I taught science class for 15 years. It wasn't at a school. It was at a church.
Yeah.
So every time he says that, he means at that church.
Yeah. Yeah. I also don't think it was high school science, by the way.
Or
maybe he was referring to the elevation above sea level of the school. I'm not entirely sure. Because then it could be high school.
I feel sorry for those people who are now full-grown adults, like living with the fact that they have been taught, quote unquote, they've been educated, quote unquote, by Kent Hovind.
Yeah,
they've been uneducated, more accurately.
I wouldn't want to have that on my resume. Educated by Kent Hovind.
Right, educated by Kent Hovind. Right. Yeah, I just looked him up. Hugh Owen. He's just a creationist. That's it. He's just another creationist dude. He's a Catholic. Okay, like I don't care.
The creation scientist, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm sure he's putting out loads of technical research that Pamela can pretend to read or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she never said anything like they never made me read technical literature. Well, okay, did you go out and read any? Well, no. Well, okay. All right then.
I think I saw him on video once. I think that might be him. This was a guy who threw a bucket of water into a pile of sand to prove that the Grand Canyon was created by the flood. I think that was him.
Oh yeah.
I went the next day to hear Dr. Joseph Strada give the talks that I now give when Mr. Owen travels and gives a weekend seminar. So, you know, I was so excited by what he was saying because he was not only saying things that I had already thought, but of course none of my colleagues would confirm or discuss with me. He was saying
none of them
things
were
that
dumb
I didn't
enough to
even
say it out
know,
loud.
that I was like, oh, that also means that evolution couldn't have happened by itself. That also means that evolution couldn't have happened by itself. And then because I'm primarily phlegmatic in my temperament, which surprises a lot of people because of the public persona that I have. But inertia works for you and against you. So I was already there, so I just didn't leave. So I listened to Mr. Owen's last talk, and in his last talk, he talked about the character of God and basically what you have to believe about the character of God, you know, and that was when I turned around.
Don't care.
Because
I don't know if you can hear. You hear that?
Oh, I hear something here.
Yeah, my
Is it
dog.
a dog or your parrot?
I mentioned Kent Hovind. My dog's asleep. He's now having a nightmare about Kent Hovind, I think.
It also sounds like my dog. Like sometimes he has also nightmares, so he's dreaming about something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
also, Savage Cobra, the ED Acker invertebrate for $5. Well, how do you think I feel about having my only degree from Liberty University?
Hmm.
I don't know. How do you
I
feel
will,
about
I will let you decide on. I will let you dabble on those feelings.
Yeah.
If you have a degree from Liberty University, does that mean that you feel liberated all the time? Second dad
America.
joke for the day.
Until I
Peter, there
understood.
was also. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There was also like an old video of Pot Holer, where he shows a guy with a hose, what like spraying water on the ground, like this is how the Grand Canyon was for. There was also that that guy. Like you mentioned, like one person having a bucket of water and dirt.
Honestly,
But, yeah,
I really missed those videos. Those were brilliant. where he took on young Earth creationists. The incredible sense of humor he put into his videos. I mean, yeah, I watched.
the one with the chicken
Yeah.
running. Well, it's like dropping
Yeah.
eggs. That was very funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of my favorites is still Ian Juby on a boat shooting with an automatic
Shooting
rifle
in his boat,
into his
yeah.
boat. I mean, this is what evolutionists think.
Oh my god.
One of the best videos ever.
That the way that understood in a super concrete way, that the way that God created the world reflects on who God is. And then if God created the world the way that he said he did, that he created it perfect, he created it for us, that said something that was the God that I believed in. I did.
Yeah, he created the world perfect and then put some imperfect people on it because they didn't listen. It wasn't perfect.
Created some
then, right?
Some imperfect angels, you know. Yeah.
He created a fallen angel, and then he created a snake with legs. Just
no,
to
but
take,
Peter, that's not God's fault because
he couldn't have seen that coming.
Next question.
He couldn't have seen that coming.
No.
I didn't believe in a God that was going to create through millions of years of death. I didn't believe in a God that was going to create an imperfect world and somehow through struggle and strife and.
We have something in common. I also don't think that the God didn't create that.
that's
how nice.
Mutations and just horrific dead end existences of these organisms that just didn't make it was going to somehow bring Adam and Eve out of that.
Pause for a second.
No, that's not.
Pause. Hold on. She still believes that, though. I mean, extinction is a thing that happens even in her worldview. Like,
except they were all drowned in a flood.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I just want all these animals that didn't make it in the flood.
Well, even the creationists who think that like dinosaurs got off the ark are still like, and then they died like immediately thereafter. So it's like, wait, hold on, wait, what? So, okay. All right.
I mean, Jackson, Noah had to eat something, and then what you do is you kill the biggest animal because that has the most meat, and you put the rest in the refrigerator that you don't have.
Like that.
Sorry.
Like every pair.
A long time, so like you'd eat tyrannosaur legs. Yeah.
Like every pair of animal had to draw straws, and the one that drew the shortest straw was food for all the others.
The dinosaurs consistently drew shorter straws.
And since T-Rex was unable to draw a straw because of the short arms, they were the first to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The marsupials were the smartest ones because they immediately pissed off towards Australia. We're not going to stick around for that.
Yeah.
But then they hightailed it out of there when they were drawing straws. So they were nope, we are going straight to Australia. Yeah. With the volcanic eruption, like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, intercontinental ballistic marsupials. Yeah.
I watched a debate between Kent Hovind and I forgot the guy's name. That was quite recently, and it only now dawned on me that according to Kent Hovind, the fountains of the deep broke open, and this was so violently that they caused the craters on the moon, even the craters on the backside of the moon, because that was the debris
Wait,
falling.
Wasn't that Nephilim free?
No.
Originally?
No.
Yeah.
That's Kent Hovind believes that the debris it fell back to Earth and then caused the craters on the backside of the moon too. But so this means that the entire world was flooded, and then after the flood, the mountains rose up. Mm-hmm. And then they rose down again because the land bridge between Australia and the rest of the world disappeared. So we have and no one has ever asked Hovind about this, because he literally said in that debate, if you lower the ocean level by a couple of 100 feet, you will have a land bridge. So where did that water go and how did it come back? I want to know.
Also, I don't think that's true. There's no evidence that there's a land bridge there, because they're two separate continental plates.
Yeah.
So that's just not true. So
which one? Sorry, I missed that. Which one?
From Australia, between Australia and southern Asia. Those are two separate plates. There's no land bridge connecting
No, Jackson.
The islands of north of Australia to the islands connecting. There's the whole reason for Wallace being there's Wallace's line here, because you have different faunas.
Jackson, but we can't have facts interfere with the Hovind theory. That we cannot allow that.
Even at the lowest point of the sea levels, there was still a big gap between I forgot which islands they were, but there's still a huge deep gulf between southern Asia and northern Australia,
Papua New Guinea and that area. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's just wrong.
Right where Wallace's line is. Yeah.
Okay, we can keep going.
Works.
Yeah.
So that's really what turned me around. I mean, I already understood that evolution couldn't happen by itself, so I already sort of saw some of the scientific flaws with it, but it was ultimately the theology that
the thing that matters the least.
The worldview itself was bankrupt. And then for a little while, I was afraid to look at the scientific evidence, because I thought that there was a lot of scientific evidence for evolution. And then
that's the opposite of what you just said.
And I have spent years now doing this, probably 8 years, looking at supposedly beneficial mutations, looking at every objection to genetic entropy that you could think of, looking at the soft tissue in the dinosaur bones. And it's just,
how much you want to bet she knows nothing about any of those
how much evidence
subjects
is inconsistent with the theory of evolution. When you actually look at what's being done in the laboratory, at what's being reported in the scientific literature, it's just absolutely inconsistent with this idea that you could have gone from in the first place. It's more impossible to go from chemicals to a cell than it is from a cell to a human being. But even just from a cell to a human being, it's actually biologically impossible.
What about actual hominid skeletons?
No, crazy
fossils, because you hear all the time about Neanderthal.
Are
there complete fossil records of these other hominids that? Because they were always looking for the missing link, and there have been several times where they pretended they had the missing link, and it was really just faked and put together and stuff. But are there actual
put together?
Were those just ape creatures that went extinct, or what is that?
Yeah, so John Wynn, who's worked really closely with the Kolbe Center and runs Restoring the Truth Ministries, has a book called The Fall of Darwin's Last Icon, and he also has a book called A Catholic Assessment of Evolution Theory. And the Catholic Assessment of Evolution Theory deals with the human evolution question in an appendix, and Fall of Darwin's Last Icon deals with it towards the end of the book. And I think he's got an even shorter book just on human evolution. But he's gone through all the literature and looked at what's being discussed in terms of human and ape intermediates. And
Okay.
he's concluded, and I think he's concluded rightly based on, because I've looked at his evidence backwards and forwards, helped him review some stuff, and
Okay, can you mention one?
he's shown pretty conclusively, and then actually Christopher Roop and John Sanford
She
also
says
wrote a book called
conclusively
Contested
several
Bones,
times.
where
Yeah,
they
yeah, I
demonstrate
know.
basically
I
the
know.
same thing, and the two of them did it independently.
Okay, what is
that when
what is
you
the, what
look
is
at
the
the
evidence?
literature, what you have are either apes or men. There's no ape men, and so Neanderthals are men. They're slightly malformed men, but they are men.
They're slightly
Right?
malformed
And
So wait,
Australopithecus is
Neanderthals
working.
are human.
Yeah.
Yeah, only men. So there were no Neanderthal women. I don't.
No,
Well, when she says
I-
human,
okay,
is she saying in terms of homo? Is she saying homo means human? That has to mean I wonder if that's what she means.
yeah.
Because
I suspect she's going down the road of like, oh, they were just normal humans with rickets or something
right.
like that. I suspect she's going there. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's so outdated by now because we have the entire Neanderthal genome, and they are genetically outside of Homo sapiens. This is like a totally like that would be a totally indefensible position nowadays, of course. But like
we also have Neanderthal children, so that the old man with the disease also doesn't work anymore because
right.
we have
also,
children.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe she'll clarify. She might clarify. I don't know if what she's referring to is like everything is either like
malformed,
is like Australopithecus, which is just an ape, or it's Homo, which is just a human. And of course, like obviously, there are cranial differences, there are postcranial differences, there are dental differences between like Homo habilis and Homo erectus compared to us. Maybe she'll clarify, but like she's got to give us a little bit more to work with. This is not enough to work with.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. I see. So I would have thought.
But the Neanderthals are just humans as wrong.
Okay. So they were. They were malformed. So you think, like, are there multiple examples of them, or?
Yeah. So some fossils we have many examples of, and some we don't have as many examples of. So there's a paper from Nature that talks about Homo sapiens, that's us, Homo sapiens morphology versus Homo erectus morphology, and Homo erectus is the one that's supposed to have come before Homo neanderthalensis and a couple other homos, and this was Nature. So Nature is like the book of biology.
Yeah, it's like the quintessential.
If you get published in Nature or published in Science, you have like made it. Okay. So they listed 7 different reasons that a man could look like an ape man, basically. So Homo sapiens could look like a Homo erectus.
What? Wait, hold on. What does this even mean? What is that? What? 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 What does this mean? Like genuinely, I'm like genuinely curious. I'm saying that like modern people have like the morphology of Homo erectus because point to one. Like, what is this? What does that even mean?
Like I suspect, but maybe I'm just guessing. I suspect she's maybe referring to a comment made by somebody who says like, oh, if you have a living Neanderthal, like wearing normal people clothes and such, walking around, if you look closely at them, you may think, oh, they are a bit funny looking, but if you don't pay attention, you might not even notice that they were Neanderthal. Like maybe she's.
But like Homo erectus is like very obviously not just a human skull, like not a modern Homo sapiens skull. We even have differences between modern Homo sapiens and archaic Homo sapiens. Like there are anatomical differences between us today and Homo sapiens like 100,000 years ago. Like there are anatomical differences between these. This idea that like they would just that they're just like humans that are just like slightly deformed, or like modern Homo sapien, like this is just so wrong. It's so stupid. It's just a stupid argument.
Although
like every species is just deformed of some other species, I guess. I don't know.
what did she say? Like a modern human being can look like a caveman, or like what was the
It looked
exact
like a
phrase
Homo
that she said?
erectus. Yeah.
Like oh,
She used the
I
word
think
ape
she
man.
may be right about that one regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene. So yeah, so
Yeah.
she may have a point there.
All
yeah.
right. We got to give her one. We got to give her a dub when she earns them. Yeah. So.
Said inbred communities, nutritional problems, anemia, genetics.
None of those make you
hormones,
look like Homo
disease,
erectus.
and even just the fact that natural variation in bone thickness would.
Now she's just dissing on the southern states in the U.S. I don't like this.
First of all, true. Second of all, none of those characteristics that she listed like give you the cranial and post-cranial features of a different species. That is nonsense. Nonsense.
Yeah, she now like I was suspecting she was like doing the whole disease thing, but now she's explicitly doing the whole disease thing. Like you won't get a Neanderthal human with anemia or
No,
rickets.
yeah.
No.
Right. This is absurd. Also, cross-platform adventures. She means a deformity could make Homo sapien look like Homo erectus. Yeah. I get that, but like, this is stupid. This is a stupid argument. Like,
but it's also like it's also the case like we have so many individuals of the like especially erectors like Homo erectus was like all over the world like not all over like not in the America,
all over Eurasia, all over Africa.
Yeah, all over Eurasia, Africa, and also it's also on Indonesian islands even, and it's probably also how like the Homo floresiensis was also established, or like is it figure like either I've seen either Homo floresiensis was another descendant of Erectus, or it may have been an older offshoot of our lineage. Like, do you know which one is which?
I was under the impression it was Erectus, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not
I suspect it's also Erectus. Yeah, like it would be very interesting if we can get the DNA out of them. That would be very interesting to see. Hopefully, cool. Sometime.
Well, we have some like proteomic proteomic data from Neanderthals, not Neanderthals, good lord, from Homo erectus. We have proteomic data from Homo erectus. So perhaps we wouldn't even necessarily need DNA. If you could get proteins of some sort from Floresiensis, maybe we could compare that and hope that it's readable. So I don't know.
There's also like evidence of like introgression with among people like living in like East Asia. From or am I mistaken about it? Like that's like evidence of a separate like not Neanderthal nor Denisovan, but a different lineage that like has at a small degree of introgression within the human population as well as sometime in the past. Like we have no any other evidence from those except in our own genome, basically. Yeah. Of course, that variant is also found in other places, but they are especially more frequent within like one particular region of East Asia, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. Oh, move on. Sorry.
Result in denser bones being more likely to be preserved than less dense bones. So there's all kinds of reasons that you can get, different human morphologies, and we have a hard time conceptualizing this because we see all the images, right? You have the apes becoming the men.
Yeah.
But just think for a minute about if you buried Danny DeVito and Shaquille O'Neal.
I was just going to say, I'm not even kidding. I was just going to say, if you found Shaquille O'Neal's, body,
let's pause for a moment.
1,000 years from now.
Pause for a moment. So first of all, the bone morphology that they have is going to be more similar to each other than to any other species of Homo. Like, just obviously, right off the bat. Like, if you compare their skulls, if you compare their post-cranial morphology, they're going to be more similar to each other than to Neanderthals or Denisovans or Homo erectus or Homo habilis. Like, it's so obvious. these people are genuinely brain damaged if they think that comparing Danny DeVito and Shaq with other like species of Homo, people will be like, oh, I don't know, maybe they're different species. Like, that's brain damage. I don't know what else to tell you.
Also,
Or
Jackson,
DNA,
that's
right?
not
Like, if you
the
took
most.
DNA,
It's not the
Do what?
most obvious thing. I don't
Not
want to
for
be
them, I
Captain
guess.
Obvious again, but if you bury Danny DeVito and Shaquille O'Neal next to each other, you might be prosecuted for murder because they're both still alive. Just a dad joke. I'll stop here.
But also, if you did DNA analysis or proteomic analysis of them, right? If you looked at Danny DeVito and Shaq, compared their DNA to Neanderthal, or compared, proteins from all four of them, what would you find? You'd find again that Danny DeVito and Shaq are more closely related to each other than to any of the others. Even within humans, Danny DeVito and Shaq are more closely related to each other than either of them are to like a number of African populations. Like, this is such a stupid analogy. Oh my god, it's such a stupid analogy.
Yeah, and we also have a lot of variation within Homo erectus. It's not like
Yep.
we used to be fair. We used to like be very splitters. Like we said, this
Ergaster
variant,
and Georgicus
yeah,
and all that.
yeah. But now we are more careful with that, and now we recognize that within the same species there can be a lot of variation. So now we see that within Homo erectus especially, there's a large degree of variation. Like even in like brain volume, surprisingly a large variation within Homo erectus as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We can keep going.
1,000 years later,
You would think there was a
somebody
race of giants.
Yeah, that you would think that they were different
No,
species.
you wouldn't.
So-
It's
Because
so
people aren't
crazy
as
how much
stupid
they
as these three.
infer from a couple of bones. That it's
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of not surprising when you consider human nature, because there's a thirst for, well, I want to be the one who found the the missing link.
Actually,
but there's
pause
also
for a
a
second.
thirst for grant money.
I just want to point out that he's making the inference. Anthony is making the inference here. No archaeologist or paleontologist is inferring that every person in a population is like 6'7" because we found one individual who is 6'7". No one does that. That's why there were like debates over Homo floresiensis when they were first found. They were like, is this microencephaly? So is it, is this a pathological condition? Oh, there's more individuals. Oh, well, okay, it can't just be, one case of a pathological condition. This is like a feature of this entire group, this entire species.
Yeah.
Like, no one makes an inference about an entire species based off of like one individual, or an entire population based on one individual. Like or I should say, no one makes like certain there are certain types of inferences you can make, like with regard to like the morphology, right? But like height, for instance, you recognize that if you're looking at one individual within a population, you're going to say like, okay, well, this individual was this tall, which might mean the species was this tall. But then until you find a second individual, then you can say, oh, well, okay, it looks like they ranged from this tall to this tall, right? Like that is normal. That is part of the normal like description. You can, if you look at any paper on paleontology, you can find like individuals got between this long and this long. Like it's so stupid that they don't know anything.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you catched this, but right before Peter paused the video, Pamela basically went down the whole conspiracy, like, oh, these people are just angling for grant money. That's why they present this diseased human as a new species, basically.
Which is
So
funny
and
coming from
that
her.
pissed me off. And that pisses
Because she
me
worked in a
off.
lab.
Yeah.
But she worked in a lab, so how can she say that? I don't know. That's so stupid. Okay, we can keep going.
I just want I missed it earlier. Eric, Skeptics and Scoundrels, said, "Wow, it's the Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger guys. Missed the twins reference. get it together. Yeah, they should bury him along with a videotape of that movie. That would really mess things up.
So I'm not going to get any more grant money if I just found another human bone, especially if I found a human bone in a strata where it's not supposed to be. That means that humans
Everyone says
a really long
this
time ago.
Everyone says this.
This is all conspiracy bullshit.
Or like
yeah.
footprints
Yep,
with
it is.
dinosaur bones.
Yeah. So
yeah, there's
Actually,
cave
RJ and I covered that in
drawings
Rocks
of
Volume 2.
Perfect
So
stegosauruses
Yeah.
in a time before they ever discovered
there's
any.
one carved in a temple in Cambodia from like
No!
somewhere between the 9th and the 12th centuries, which is long after dinosaurs were supposed to have been
No!
extinct and
Not
long
the
before we're supposed to have
Angkor
dug them up.
Cambodian.
Is she referring to the Ica
It's,
stones?
It's
No, wait, pause, Peter.
when you,
No,
She's talking about the Angkor Wat Stegosaur,
the Angkor Wat
the frickin'
temple.
one that's on a yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
on the frick, what do you call it? The wall.
and the wall, it's a relief or so, something.
The relief.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So she's like a cryptozoology buff too. Of course she is. I mean, of course she is.
If you look at those sculptures basically, and you can also see other animals on top and below, and what you see is all these animals have like a background of leaves.
Yes.
Like they're surrounded by leaves, and that's what these like creationists point towards this particular animal. With it has like stegosaurus plates along its back, even though the animal doesn't look even remotely like a stegosaur.
The head is way too big. It doesn't have a
It has ears.
thagorizer. It has ears.
It has
doesn't
ears.
have the
Like a
right
mammal.
posture. It's literally it's a Sumatran rhinoceros. Like that's what it is because they live in that area. Like it's so stupid.
And those plates are just leaves. They are part of the background. They are not part of the animal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so stupid. Actually,
you see,
RJ
and
I do talk about that in Rocks Volume 2. Yeah,
you see similar backgrounds on the other release on the exact same wall.
The other reliefs are also this.
It's got like water
exact
buffaloes
same
and
background.
stuff on it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
how much are we? Okay, all right, hold on.
Also, I want to point out that it's not stegosauruses, it's stegosaurs. But that's me nitpicking.
I mean, that's true. I want to make a bet. I'm willing to bet the conversation's about to turn to like dragons were dinosaur depictions in art. That's my bet.
I'm still hoping they're going to bring up.
Here in the live chat watching.
I'm hoping they're going to bring up the pictures that we have of giant people, which are pictures from a website called Worth 1000, which was a Photoshop website, which at one time. So you had different challenges, and one of the challenges was when I was on that. It was a forum for people who like Photoshop, and so one of the challenges was make a archaeological dig where they find giant human skeletons. Those pictures from that contest are still used by young Earth creationists today. I know for a fact that Kent Hovind has those in his slides because I have Hovind's slides. He's not used it frequently recently, but he does have those pictures.
You have Hovind's slides?
Yes.
How do you have Hovind's slides?
I got a link from someone who got sent a link to a Google Drive, and I just emptied the entire Google Drive to my computer, so I've got literally everything Hovind had at that time.
Oh, okay.
If you want it, Neslick, I can probably send it to you. It's quite
no. I don't need to.
Okay,
all right, let's keep going.
When you really start to understand how much of their imagination goes into these things, it really is. It's almost like I can't watch anything with science anymore from the mainstream, because anything they say, like all I
Oh
did, like
no!
recently there was an article that came out about this bear they found in the
Completely
Russian
conspiracy
permafrost.
brained.
I doubt he's ever watched
He is
anything to begin with.
No, he's completely conspiracy brained. You know, for an well, I mean, we already know that these are all anti-vaxxers. I guarantee. If actually, let's look it up. Let's look it up. Actually, hold on. What's his name? Catholicism or whatever.
Oh, Eric, Skeptics and Scoundrels said Hovind's tech guy isn't the sharpest. Well, that's a recurring thing. That started with Steve, and all of his tech guys so far have been on exactly that same level. So, yeah.
Hold on. Let's see. Oh, is he? I wonder.
One of my fondest memories is where Hovind did a show on Emma Thorne, and it had no sound, and everyone in chat was saying no sound, no sound, and then PZ Myers joined and started insulting Hovind for the entire show. So I made sure that I got a copy of that video with the side chat. It was the most brilliant show Hovind has ever done. No sound for an hour straight. And they didn't find out until 2 days later, and then removed the whole thing.
I was. Okay, wait. Here, hold on.
We have something apparently.
I have to know the answer to this before. Please, God, please. No, hold on. What does it mean? Okay, does he agree though? See, what I was curious is if Anthony also believes in the weather machine. And I scrolled down. He has a post where he is quote tweeting saying, "Can't believe there are Catholics out there debating this topic. Shame." And it is a quote tweet of the tweet, "I honestly don't think they," meaning Jews, "can control the weather, but there's a lot of things I previously honestly thought that have been proven wrong, so I'm not going to condemn someone for thinking that." Now, I don't now his quote, Anthony's response to that is too ambiguous for me to know what he means, whether he agrees or not. However, the comments in response the comments on Anthony's post are, "Jews controlling the weather is biblical. Lol, and seems like an easy way to poison the well." Okay, maybe, I don't know actually. Well, okay, so one person seems to agree, one person seems to disagree. I don't know what lol either way.
And the poisoning the well is like an anti-Semitic trope for poisoning the well.
Is it? Okay, well.
Yeah. Like the Jews poisoning the well. That's an anti-Semitic trope. Yeah.
Okay, seems like an easy way of poisoning the well of widespread noticing. Divide, distract, discredit. Immediately sus of anyone pushing the stuff, regardless of the merit. Okay, so I don't actually know if he agrees with the weather thing. He might, and I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know. His comments are too ambiguous to for me to know one way or the other. I don't know. I don't know. I would like to know. I would very much like to know. Well, sad. Okay, I really, I was hoping that I was really hoping he believed in the weather machine. I can't tell. It's hard to tell. I can't be sure either way. Sad. Okay. Oh well. All right, we can keep going with the video.
They're like, this bear is this ancient prehistoric bear from 80,000 years ago. And like 2 weeks later, somebody's like, no, never mind. This thing's only from 7,000 years ago. We made a mistake because they want it to be this thing, this ancient thing that existed
hold on.
in their minds, you know?
Right. And we have to understand that, like,
I
science,
think that's made up.
And this always confused me as a
It
kid.
sounds like
the
he
first
just
thing that
made
you
it
do
up.
in science
It
is you
does
come
sound
up
like
with a
he made it up,
hypothesis,
yeah.
which is basically a prediction about what you think is going to be the outcome of the experiment, and then you design the experiment. So you're.
Did you see that comment, Jackson? Idiots put colored feathers on dinosaur skeletons.
True. That's actually what I do in my spare time.
Yeah. Then we got
so everybody commenting on the post that Anthony was commenting on agrees that there are like cloud machines. So weather machines. So Anthony might agree. I have no idea. I don't know. I'll just say I wouldn't be surprised if he agrees that there are weather machines.
In all fairness, I recently saw an interview with Michio Kaku, who explained that with lasers they can cause precipitation, and they're using that now as evidence that the weather is being controlled by the Democrats. Not kidding.
True. Actually, the information wasn't supposed to get out. They weren't supposed to know that we were making hurricanes. But here we are.
Yeah.
You have all kinds of selection bias because you're designing an experiment to look for the thing that you're looking for, and not necessarily to look for the truth. And so it's just a problem that's rampant.
I'm just curious, how else are you going to find something out if you have a hypothesis that something exists? Aren't you going to design something to find out whether or not it exists? I mean, is there any other way
Peter,
to...
If you want to test hypothesis, you have to make up hypothesis and then like pretend it's not real, and it will reveal itself to you.
Yeah. Like the gravitational waves that Einstein predicted.
You have to die, actually, and then like a century later,
yeah,
it will reveal itself to you.
Yes,
or to everyone else. If you're dead.
Okay.
In science these days, people are so conditioned to just look for the things that they're expecting rather than looking for the things that they actually find. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Whenever I see an article or like
results.
A tweet or something that says this thing is from 45,000 years ago, or this is from 3 million years ago, they may as well just say a bajillion. You may as well just make up some number. Because
wait, that guy, the guy who just wrote that comment, wasn't that the dude who said he was in academia? He just said he was in healthcare. So which is it? Is he in academia or is he in healthcare? Which is it? Which how many jobs is this guy gonna have? He's in academia, he's in healthcare.
Jackson, no. He said that if you believe in the what was it, the geocentric model and flat Earth and young Earth creationism, you're going to be kicked from academia. So then you go take up a job in healthcare. See, it's really that easy.
Well, when you put it that way, I mean, I'm used to talking to these people, so they come up with excuses all the time. So I try to beat them at it.
Once you get into that realm of millions of years, you really can't comprehend it. Like we were saying earlier, it's just this thing from ancient past.
I don't understand, therefore God. There we go.
That we'll never understand. And
if you make it hand wavy enough and you assert it forcefully enough, then everybody's going to be like, oh, okay, I don't really understand how that works, but it must be true.
Yeah. I had a question from somebody asked me, what is the difference between evolution and adaptation, if there is any, and what role does food, weather, and radiation, like from sunlight, play in the alterations to DNA?
Sure. So those are kind of two separate questions. So you have to
they're two separate questions.
Remind me of the second one after I answer the first one.
Well, the first one was just what's the difference in evolution and adaptation?
Right. So some people try to call it
Adaptation is a part of
make a distinction
evolution.
between macroevolution and microevolution. I prefer to make a distinction between evolution and between variation within a kind. Right. So
I prefer to
if
use
you look at
terms that don't
dogs are
have
a great example of
definitions
how
instead
far we
of
can push
terms that do
variation
have
within a kind, because
definitions.
you have all
That's
kinds of
what I
variation
prefer.
in terms of coat length and coat color and tails and ears and size and and
Don't
even
tell David
friendly versus
Berlinski
not very
that
friendly.
he likes women have
But
tails.
you don't ever develop a dog that has opposable thumbs, and there's never a dog that gives birth to kittens, right?
Mhm.
And so you have organisms have in their genes an ability to vary within certain parameters. And one of the clearest examples of this is actually Darwin's finches. They were studied by Rosemary and Peter Grant
Uh-huh.
on the Galapagos Islands,
Is
and they
the
looked at the finches over the
epigenetics
course
thing
of the
again?
drought. And as the water decreased, the seeds, the only food that was left was super dry, big seeds from previous seasons. And the birds that had larger beaks survived. And they said, look, this is evolution happening. These birds have bigger beaks than they had before. But then the drought went away and the average beak size decreased because the birds had the ability to produce slightly larger beaks, slightly smaller beaks. And the ones that would survive would depend on what the environmental conditions are. So that's where you get adaptation, because natural selection is a thing.
Yeah.
So if all of a sudden, the environment changes and a certain kind of trait is not favored, the individuals with those traits are going to die off. But that's
you
going to
breed two
contribute.
big dogs, you're going to get big dogs. You breed a Chihuahua with that's why you get these different breeds of dog. You'll get different sizes and variations. So, but wait, now with the finches, because I remember arguing with somebody about this one time, and he was trying to tell me that the finches were actually different species.
They are different species.
Well,
They are.
there's supposed to be 14 different species, but if you
There's
use the
different
biological
genera.
definition of species, which is animals that can interbreed or the same species, then there is at most 6 different species, and there might be only one different species.
Oh my god, you dumb.
The
pause.
Darwin's finches.
Okay, this absolute abject moron. There are like 14 species, and there are, I think, 4 different genera. There's like Certhidia, Geospiza, Platyspiza, and is it Melanospiza? What's the other one? Ooh, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, there's like 4 genera and like 14 species, and they don't really interbreed, right? Like hybridization is penalized, and if you read the book of the Beak of the Finch, which is a book about finches by
according to Wikipedia, 18 species and
18.
5 genera. Yeah.
There we go. Okay,
5
so
genera.
yeah, exactly, even more than I thought.
Yeah.
But if you read the Beak of the Finch, it talks about how hybridization is penalized between these different species, so they can produce a fertile hybrid, but the environment selects against fertile hybrids. And here's why. Or against those hybrids. And here's why. The reason is, as she just mentioned, when you have a drought, if you are Geospiza magnorostris, for instance, you've got this really thick beak for cracking tough seeds. Well, when the drought rolls around, you need to have a beak that is within a particular size constraint, because if you don't, you won't be able to crack seeds fast enough, to either to crack nuts fast enough or to pick seeds fast enough. And so if, for instance, Geospiza magnorostris and Geospiza conorostris, like if they mate and they produce a little hybrid offspring, the beak size of that hybrid is intermediate. And so because it's intermediate, it's maladaptive. And so they can't pick seeds or crack nuts fast enough, and they get weeded out. So you have this separation of these species based on the environments. They have to have beaks within particular ranges. And so that's how you can maintain these species barriers, even if they can't actually mate. So she's just like wrong all across the board on this. So
it's like a disruptive selection, or like stabilizing selection would be where the mean is favored over the extremes, but in this case, the extremes are favored over the intermediate form, basically. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And so she's just wrong across the board. Anthony, actually was correct that there are multiple species. Pam's wrong. Film
But
of the
like,
legend,
like
right?
is she actually arguing that they are all one species?
Well, let's get one more clip in there, and then we'll call it for today. How about that? I'll see
14,
how she
14
can do it.
different species don't interbreed because they're on separate islands, but not because they're actually different species. So you can have geographical isolation,
Oh, she is.
and then you get changes in traits like beak shape or
Except they're
even foot
all
shape or
allopatric.
feather
There is
coloration or
sympatry.
things like that, because when you have a small population that's isolated from another small population, anytime you have a small population, if you have a single mutation arise, it's more likely to get fixed in that population. It's more likely to stick around. And if you have some sort of event like a drought or a flood or something that's going to eliminate a lot of the population sort of non-specifically, although a drought would be a little bit more specific, but a forest fire, a forest fire doesn't care whether you have a big beak or a small beak. It's if you're in the way, you're just going to get burned up, So that causes genetic drift, which will cause the loss of certain genes from the genome that might actually be favorable to the organism, but just because those individuals happen to die that day, they are no longer in the gene pool. So when you look at natural selection and adaptation, you have to remember that whenever you have change in a population like that, you usually have loss of genetic information, and that goes back to the problem of genetic entropy, right?
All right,
a chihuahua will never give rise.
Okay, so she's just going off on again. Okay, so
a chihuahua will never give rise to a whale. Yeah, we know.
Yeah. Okay, so she kind of sidestepped the issue. The problem is not like the problem again is not like the founder effect, which she mentioned. That can be. I mean, there are different islands, but the islands are all relatively close to each other. What you have is more of like, I mean, obviously, like population. The founder effect is playing a role in their adaptation. You have a population, it's on a different island, but like there is a lot of sharing of like the the flora among these different islands. So yes, it's like there's going to be adaptation to particular flora. There's going to be you're going to try to avoid competition with other populations. So you're going to specialize on one particular food source, all that jazz. And so like yeah, but like not all of them are allopatric. There can be sympatry between them. So go watch our video, The Finch's Tale. We talked about all this at length.
Do you remember if is each genus specific to an island, or are they overlapping with each other? The genera.
I think the species are mostly allopatric, but there can be sympatry between genera, if I remember correctly. Because you want to avoid competition between species.
But it's the competitive exclusion principle, right? So they tend to not use the same resources between species. Each species mostly, maybe not always, but they mostly make use of one specific resource that another species is not using.
Yeah.
Of course, that may not be a perfect rule, but it's. But of course, if every species is using one resource, then that would be a very unstable situation.
Yeah. I mean, like you can have sympatry, so the ranges can overlap, but mostly you've got like allopatry. It's not just that they're separated, even though that does play a factor in it. Like that is a role that it does play, but they have to adapt to their particular niches to avoid competition, and also like the hybrids that do arise when there is sympatry are also selected against by the environment. So even when they do co-occur, there is selection against hybrids. It's a hybrid. They're just maladaptive because, as you said, they possess an intermediate morphology, intermediate phenotype, which is maladaptive.
What is this intermediate between? Like one extreme is for cracking seeds, right? But what's the other extreme?
So, for instance, like Conorostris like pierces cacti, if I remember correctly. So, like uses its beak to pierce cacti. So it has to be this conical
narrow
beak, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Magnorostris has this really big beak and she's using it to crack nuts. So if you have something that's like in between. It's like not strong enough to crack nuts, but also not strong enough, but also not like conical enough to pierce cacti or something like that, right?
Right. Yes, that explains
it's-
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like So it's not just that they're allopatric, that is part of it, but it's also that the intermediates are maladaptive. So that's the point. So anyway, okay, so all right.
How many minutes did we cover this time?
All right, Peter, give us the bad news.
5 minutes.
Let me check. No, we actually covered quite a big amount. So we covered about a little more than half an hour. So we only have 30 minutes left. Yes.
Oh,
that's awesome. Oh,
if we do the same next week, then we're on to the next video. So that's
okay.
Kind of cool.
Deal. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, okay. So that was fun.
Yes.
We hope one more video and then we're done with Pamela Acker.
Yes.
Because my brain is, I think, overheating whenever I watch anything with her in it.
In all fairness, what's coming next isn't going to be any better either. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Quick spoiler alert for the people watching. It's going to get worse.
Somehow it can always get worse.
Yes. But so Jackson, there is what a silver lining to this cloud. Do you recall when Kent Hovind, before he went to prison, used certain numbers to explain how the devil has influence, because he used to peddle what was it, barcodes? Barcodes have a bar in it.
Like a numerologist or something?
Yeah, barcodes have 3 bars in it, so one at each end and one in the middle, and they represent a 6. So barcodes is 666, so that was the mark of the beast. Now, in light of the upcoming election, scientists have studied Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and they have made a groundbreaking discovery. Did you hear about that?
What is the groundbreaking discovery?
Well, apparently Harris and Trump's combined IQ is exactly the same of that of Kamala Harris.
What did the intro with the 666 have to do with this?
You have to lead up to it, right? That was my last dad joke for the day.
Oh my gosh. Well, I appreciate it. Okay. So, so next week we hope to finish with Pamela Acker, and then we can move on to something else. I'm not going to say better
finally,
because it won't be better. But it will be something. So, so thank you, Peter, and thank you, Nestle, for being here and joining me on this this experience, this trip.
It's always fun.
And thank you, everybody in the live chat, for watching. So,
and don't forget to vote for Harris and Walls.
Yes.
Don't forget to vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Do not forget to vote. That is true. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see all of you next Thursday. So,
bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.